Hello and welcome back to the Let's Get Organized series. We are working on getting organized with our money, and we are using Monarch Money to help us to easily do that. So the first thing we did was get all of our accounts connected into Monarch Money, and today we're going to do some additional setup so that Monarch can be used as a tool to help us see clearly into our finances. All right, we are starting at the dashboard screen. The first thing you see when you log into Monarch Money, when you log in here, it can be a little bit overwhelming to see all the different pieces of information that they are sharing with you. Monarch Money has several widgets shown on this front screen here, and it shows different information about your particular financial situation. You can adjust this so that it makes sense for you, so that it works a little bit better for you. So you can drag and drop these. You can move them around so that they are reordered. You can also delete them so that you do not see as many of them on the screen. So you can drag and drop just from this main screen. You can also click on customize and turn these on or off, and drag and drop them, reorder them here as well. So in here, you can just toggle each one of these switches to on or to off. So one of the widgets that you'll definitely be able to turn off is the Getting Started guide. Once you've done what Monarch Money recommends to get started, you can turn that off, or you can just follow along with the instructions I'm giving you. So you can turn this off right now and follow along with the steps in order to get started in here. So turn on whatever makes sense, turn off what doesn't make sense. If you want a full explanation of what each of these widgets are, you can go to the widgets video to figure that information on. So I've just selected two random ones to leave on. So now this screen is a lot clearer and not so overwhelming. So reorganize that and update it to your liking. Next, we are going to go over to the settings. And this is for people who share Monarch Money with a partner, or who share their money with a partner. You'll likely want to share Monarch Money with that partner as well. So to do that, you will go to the settings. You can reach the settings by using the settings gear. You can also reach the settings by clicking on your name and then clicking on the word settings. And here, the first thing we'll do is go to members. And this is where you can add an additional member to share Monarch Money with. So here you will go to add household member. It will give you a prompt to enter that person's email address. It will send them an invitation to join your Monarch Money account. So you will have your own individual logins, but you'll both see the exact same information. It's a shared account between the two of you. So that's the way to do that. If you are also working with a financial advisor or financial coach, then you can give access to that person by clicking on the Give Access to a Financial Professional button down at the bottom, if that is necessary. All right, the next thing we are going to look at is your notifications. So on the same screen over here, we'll go to notifications. Monarch Money has a ton of notifications that it can send you, and as you can see as I scroll, these notifications can be quite overwhelming to get all these emails all the time, get all these push notifications saying this or that about your money. And so you don't want this to be an overwhelming thing. I suggest you turn off most of these. You can leave on ones that make sense, but definitely look through, read what the notification is going to be sent, and consider if you really want to receive that or not. And then you can toggle these off so that you don't receive an overwhelming amount of notifications. All right, next thing we're going to do is go back to your accounts that we got set up on that first day, and we are going to make those be reorganized and renamed so that they are clear. So in here, you can see that these have already been renamed. So we've got Melanie's 401k, Melanie's Roth IRA, John's IRA, Melanie's brokerage, so forth and so on. But what you are likely to see when you initially connect your account is probably 401k with the last four digits of your 401k. So maybe 401k 0175, or it may just say Vanguard account 0175. Whatever your digits are. And you will want to go and rename these so it's clear what we're looking at when we're looking at your information in here. To do that, you will just click on the account. On the top, you will click on edit, and then you'll click on edit account. And from here, you will rename it. So where it says name, you will type in the correct name. This one says Melanie's 401k. And then you can go ahead and save that so that all of your accounts are clearly understood. And the other thing you can do on this screen, if you would like to reorganize anything, that you can drag and drop in each section to reorganize things, whatever is more important to you, if that makes sense to reorganize. You can minimize these larger groups of items. We've got the investment sections, the real estate section, loans, credit cards, cash. So you can minimize those so you don't see all of them at once. And then you can reorder the order that these are in if you would like to, but those are some things to do in the account section. The most important thing to do in this account section is to rename these accounts. So for instance, the cash accounts are the ones that you really want to pay attention to. We have a joint checking account. We've got B of A checking, Ally checking, so forth and so on, shown here right now. So let's pretend like you have this B of A checking account and it's actually a joint bills account and you pay all of your bills out of that one. And this Chime checking account is actually for spending and you spend it on everything that's not a bill. So you would want to rename this according to how that account is used or who that account belongs to. So this might be renamed to joint spending account, B of A checking. I might name that to B of A joint bills account, or whatever makes sense in your situation. So Natasha's checking account, Damien's checking account, so forth and so on. So update those account names so that that is organized. And then we will go back to the categories, to the settings section, and we're going to take a look at the categories. So the categories is really important because the categories is where exactly are you receiving that income from, and your expenses, where exactly is the money being spent on. So we want to make sure that we update these to be reflective of your particular spending. So I'm going to jump over to the budget section before we edit here so you can see why updating these categories is super important. So if I go over to budget, we're going to see each one of those categories from that category settings section that we saw appear here in the budget. So we see auto payment, we see water, we see gas and electric, and this is where we're going to see how much we spend on each one of these categories. But some of these categories may not pertain to you. Like I mentioned before, Monarch has over 60 categories, or about 60 categories that are preset in here. And so you may want to disable the ones that don't make sense for you, that you don't have, or rename them so that they are more personalized and in a way that makes sense to you. So we'll jump back to settings, and then we are going to go to categories, and we're going to start renaming some things in here. So there are 3 different groups of categories. There's the income group that's showing money that is coming in Monarch Money. There's the expenses group, and that is money going out. And then the last one at the very bottom is the transfers group. And the transfers group is just money that is moving from one place to another. So it's moving from your checking account into your savings account, or moving from your checking account into your investment account. So these transfers do not show up on that budget section that we just looked at. So anything categorized as transfer is not going to show that it's new money coming in or new money going out, because it's just the movement of money between your accounts. So as I'm scrolling up, you'll be able to see that there are a lot of categories here inside of this Monarch Money category section that it starts with. Some of these categories are great, and some of these may need to be renamed, and some of them may need to be taken away. So we're going to start in the income section because that's the easiest section to start with. So we've got paychecks here. What you'll want to do is rename that to your name and paychecks. So we'll start by doing that. So I'm going to put Melanie, because this is Melanie's account, Melanie's paychecks, and then we'll save that. And if you are sharing this with a partner, you and your partner both earn income, then you'll also want to show your partner's income, your partner's paychecks. So then in here, I'm going to create another category in this income section. So I'll select create category, and I will put John's paychecks. And then you can change the icon to make the most sense for you. Here, I'm just going to keep that same paycheck icon. And now we've got Melanie's paychecks and John's paychecks. And then I'm going to go ahead and reorder these so that all paychecks will appear next to each other. So the order we see things appearing here is the order we're going to see things over on the budget section. So if you want to see something above another thing, just drag and drop to reorder over here. So we've got paychecks showing. And then if you have other income. Maybe you have a side job that you are bringing income through. Maybe you have an RSUs that you're granted every so often. Then you might want to create an income category for that so that it's separate from your main paychecks. If you want to keep it with your main paycheck, that's fine. But in my case, I'm going to go ahead and say John's RSUs and add in an icon for it and save that so that we can track that income separate from the general salary that is expected. The interest, you'll want to keep that one because when you earn interest on your checking account or your savings accounts, that's the interest that we're going to be seeing. Other income, you'll want to keep an option for other income for times when random other income might come through. Business income, you can likely deactivate this one. So you can go ahead and disable and click on disable category. So you cannot fully delete these categories that Monarch Money comes pre-populated with. You can only disable them. So they will be grayed out. They won't be shown in your budget, but they're still there. So if you ever wanted to reactivate them, you could reactivate them. So you will set up your income section first. Once that's set up, then you'll go down and look through the expenses. The first thing I recommend is for you just to go down the list, read through the expenses that are here and to see what is actually available and are there any that definitely do not pertain to you, that will never pertain to you, that you do not want to see inside of your account. So the goal here is that we minimize down to the essentials. We don't want so many categories that it's hard to really see what's going on with our money, but you also want enough to get a picture inside. So you'll just scroll through, see what makes sense. To me, some of these are redundant. So when I'm looking in auto and transport, I see public transit, I see parking and tolls, I see taxi and ride shares. Those are all very similar to me. So in my case, I would probably disable public transit and disable parking and tolls, and then just rename taxi and ride shares to cover all of those particular expenses. So if I were going to do that, then I would click on public transit, I would disable and disable that category. And then I'm going to do the same for parking and tolls, disable, and now we'll disable that category. And then for taxi and ride shares, I'll come here and I'll just rename that and I'll put riding expenses or whatever you want to name it. Just name it something that makes sense for you. So then all of my parking, tolls, public transit, all that stuff is going to go into this riding expenses category. So you'll just look through and see what needs to be here, what doesn't need to be here. So here we've got mortgage and rent. Typically you've got one, not the other. So you can go ahead and disable one of those. So in my case here, I'm going to go ahead and disable rent and I will disable that category. And you just keep looking through and update these in a way that makes the most sense for you. One of the things that I would recommend adding here is under the bills and utilities section is to create a category for subscriptions. We often have subscriptions that happen, but there's not a subscriptions category. So I would say that would be the one addition to definitely make. You don't need to make too many additions in here to the categories, but that is one that I would say definitely make. So like food and dining, in my case, I'm not a frequenter of coffee shops, so I would disable coffee shops and then I would reassign these to a different category. So one of the things that might happen if you are disabling categories is you might see this pop up, and what it's saying is you have 32 transactions that are under coffee shops. Where should we put these transactions? They need to go to a different place. So in this case, coffee shops for me is going to go under that restaurant's spending. So when you are disabling categories, if you notice transactions within something, then you'll need to decide where does this belong in my mind and go ahead and reassign it. So I'm going to go ahead and reassign this to restaurants and bars. And so now anything that is a coffee shop spending is going to go to restaurants and bars. So I'll click on disable. And now that action is going to take place. Now, for some people, you may want to see that separation between coffee shops because you may be someone who frequents coffee shops. So again, make it make sense for you. So you will go through, reorder, rename these in a way that makes sense, disable categories that you don't need, and then you can move on to the next step after this. Another thing that you might consider doing if you are with a partner and each of you have your own spending money that you spend from, and will be represented inside of this Monarch Money dashboard is, instead of having this personal account, you might have one that is Melanie's personal. And then you might go ahead and save that. And then add another category for your other person's personal. So I'll just put John's personal. All right, so think about the categories, look through, disable the ones that don't make sense for you. Ones that I definitely would recommend disabling would be down here at the bottom, all of these business ones. You can probably get rid of all of these. Postage and shipping is in business. For me, I would probably move postage and shipping into the shopping category, but you can do what makes the most sense for you. And then the other thing to consider is medical. Sometimes I'll see people, they'll want to add Melanie's therapy, Melanie's gym, Melanie's this. We don't need to separate out in that particular fashion, because then we're going to end up with a whole lot of different categories. The other thing we can do is to add tags instead of that. So that is still a medical expense, but we can tag it to Melanie so we know that it's specific to Melanie. So the last thing I'll do is to show you tags, and then you can continue setting this up for you. So we'll go back over to the settings section. I'm going to click on tags. So a tag is an additional little piece of information we can add to a transaction, so we know what is that transaction being spent on. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new tag, and I'm going to do Melanie's therapy, and that's going to go under medical. And then I will also do one for John. And I'll just say John's physical therapy, and I will save that, because these are things that you may not have forever in your budget. You may not always have therapy, but you're always going to have medical expenses likely in your budget. So you can still show them under that medical expense, which is what they are, but you're going to add tags. So if you wanted to filter down to see how much did we spend on Melanie's therapy last year, or how much did we spend on John's physical therapy last year, you can do that for those particular things. There are other use cases for this as well. Let's say you are doing a renovation to your home, then you might add in a renovation tag, 2024 home renovations, something like that. For travel and vacation, you might want to see how much did you spend on one particular trip. So you might add a tag for a specific trip, the 2024 Legoland trip or whatnot. So that's a way that you can add tags in here to get your category set up. All right, so we will stop right there with getting this organized, and the next thing we're going to look at is your actual spending by going to the transactions, and I'll meet you in the next video for that.